So who gets to be a director and do they get paid? So obviously within a company you have the shareholders who own the shares in the company and therefore are the owners of the company. And then you have the directors who are responsible for the sort of oversight and governance of the company. Then you have the employees and contractors who work for the company. It's quite common, however, in a small business for the same person to perform all three of these roles. But it's really important that you have very clear documentation that sets out the different rights and responsibilities of each of these roles. If you've already incorporated your company, you will have already named your directors. But if you haven't, or for situations where new shareholders come into the business, for example, a current shareholder might sell their shares to a new shareholder, or you might get a new investor into the business, you need to have the rules about who can appoint directors and whether or not those directors get paid. If you want to have any different number than one minimum director of your company, it's a requirement that you have at least one, but you can agree a different minimum. Also, whether or not you'd like to have a maximum number of directors for your company. This isn't a requirement, but you can include it if you want to. You also have to agree how directors are appointed. So, for example, does each shareholder have the right to appoint one director, or is it only shareholders that have, say, 30% of the shares in the company? You also need to decide if directors will be paid. So obviously, if you're a small business, you might be both a director and a shareholder, and then you might also work for the business. But in your capacity as working for the business, you would be considered either an employee or a contractor for the business. In relation to directors' fees, this is more when you're just getting paid for being a director. And so it's more common in larger companies and not that common for small companies or startups. However, even if you say that at the moment directors' fees won't be paid, you can change this as the company grows. Another thing to decide is how many directors need to be present at a formal directors' meeting in order to make a decision. So you might have heard this referred to as a quorum. Now, you can have it that only a majority of directors need to be present, so that if one director can't make it, you can still go ahead with the meeting. However, you can have it that all directors need to be there if you want to. Now, if you're circulating a written resolution instead of having a board meeting, which you can do, that resolution does need to be signed by all the directors.